Now live and on lockdown.
Are you ready?
Broadcasting from Edinburgh, Scotland and across the globe.
Listen here.
You're listening to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast for host Fraser Ramsay.
Hi, this is Afia Letha from KingdomBeats.com. Proud to be a sponsor of Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders.
Good evening, and you're tuned into another edition to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders. We're doing another podcast. We're using a different angle this time on this show. As I say, you've just been hearing my intro. You've just been you're listening to on the podcast. We've had our sponsor by KingdomBeats.com, which is Afia Letha. My guest tonight is a guy all the way from Chicago, and he's called Pat Voss. So I'm looking forward to interviewing him. Been chatting to him for a while on a platform called Get Vocal. We are actually using Get Vocal as a platform. It's a video, but we're taking the audio. For those who are listening to this on the replay or on the podcast on the go, you will see, hear as well. There's a bit of both if you see the video, but it's very easy to get confused with see and hear when you're doing both at the same time. But I'm introducing Pat Voss. We're going to be talking about bipolar and depression, so he will be discussing his own experience and how he deals with it. And hopefully by listening to his story, you might be inspired in the ways that you want to connect with him after. You might want to have a conversation, you might want to help each other out, you might want to share experiences, a way of trying to maybe have that better life out with bipolar. Obviously may not affect you as much in some way or form, but we will get more of an insight to bipolar through Pat and depression and his life in general. He's not ancient. He's still a young guy. He's still got, as he laughs, as I see that. But even though I'm not quite looking into the camera, I'm doing a bit of juggling between my eyes. So apologies. I understand when I watch my friend Tachi, who does Media Scope, that you're kind of having to juggle, especially if you're on video or on audio as well. You're having to still do multitask at the best of times. And men don't do that at the best of times anyway. But we won't go any further with that. But anyway, we'll have our usual 60-second singing tips coming up with BENITA Charles from BENITACharles.com. She is a singer in New York. She does, which is great to play that on the podcast, supporting us and what we do. Our other supporters will be mentioned down the line through the interview. So, but let's not waste any more time and let's bring in Pat Voss. Welcome to the Ramsay Unleashed Going Beyond Borders show, Pat. How you doing?
Hey, Ramsay, how are you? I'm doing fine today, man.
So how's your day been? But I know what time you went to your bed at. You probably not had much of your day, but how was your day? What day you've had so far?
Hey, the day I've had so far is nice. I've got this show. I'm very, very happy that you had me on here, that you're wanting to talk about and really dive into a deep issue like bipolar depression and anxiety and the disorders that do plague a lot of America and a lot of the world, but people maybe don't want to talk about it as much. They kind of press it to the back of their minds real quick. So I'm so glad that you had me on today, and I've been having a good day. And I've got later on today, I've actually got my fiance, Devo, Miss Devo 22 on Twitter, is performing live in the suburbs of Chicago for her cover band.
Fantastic. Well, we can talk about that a bit more as well later on. For those who don't really know who you are, and obviously tell us where tell us about the background of your life, brought up, school, kind of how, what was it, good, bad, your
Sure.
life, and dissect a little bit. We originally from Chicago. Were you born and brought up somewhere else?
So a little bit of background about myself.
Yeah.
Obviously, you said I'm Pat Voss. I've done hosting. I'll get to that in a minute. I've done hosting. I've done radio. I've done, my own podcast now for over 5 years in different, ways, shapes, and forms over 5 years. But growing up, I was born and raised here in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, about 45 minutes from the city, northwest. I had a family that, unfortunately, my mother was very, and I won't say clingy. She was very protective. She was overprotective, but my father was very strict. So it was the other way around. You had an angry, seemingly angry father and a overprotective mother growing up in where we would always go to church every Sunday. I was baptized the whole 9 yards, but as I started growing up, I started realizing like there's something wrong, and not with the church. I'm saying there's something wrong with me. And I feel a certain type of way. Growing up, I was, excuse me, I was always getting picked on in school from first grade on. I can remember instances from first grade all the way through high school that there was someone always after me for some reason. They didn't like something about me. Maybe I was too skinny. Maybe I was too dorky. Maybe I was too whatever. And it's okay now. Like, I realize now, we can get into that later, but I realize now that I was suffering from type 1 bipolar disorder and anxiety disorder. And unfortunately, it didn't help that I had the kind of family I did, the mother and father I did. Not that they're bad people, but it didn't help. It added on to what would later become my out party for mental disability later on. But I did play sports. I did play sports growing up. I played baseball. I was a center fielder for years, from the age of 7 until all the way up and through high school before I hurt myself. I other than that, playing outside, being a kid like that, trying to escape, I didn't realize early on that I was trying to escape. I thought I was just having fun outside. Didn't realize I didn't ever want to keep coming back home, because that's where I started feeling depressed, home and school. Where, how do I get away from that? So that's a little bit about me and leading up, and we'll go from there.
Were you quite academic, or were you more practical?
So there's book smart and street smart, right? Everybody says book smart, street smart. I had to learn the street smarts eventually. So I was more book smart. Growing up. But one of my friends allowed me to kind of ask him questions and really pick his brain growing up of, okay, what should I know common sense wise out when I'm out? What should I know? What should I pick up on when we go to a party? What should I needed to learn how to be more social outside of just, hey, get picked on at school. Hey, do your homework. So academically, even though I did not choose, and early on in life was not seen as bipolar, there was in my generation, the big thing was ADHD was thrown around a lot. ADHD, the diagnosis of ADHD, was thrown out a hell of a lot when I was younger. And unfortunately, that's what they caught me with. Try to give me Ritalin, try to give me different types of pills to combat something I didn't have. So, I tried my best to do the work, to stay focused. It wasn't happening. Of course, we now know with type 1 bipolar disorder that it's the attention. It's almost like attention deficit disorder, but it feels like 100 times worse.
Okay.
As far as knowing you want to do something, but yet your brain doesn't want to allow you to do it. And it's pulling you in one direction.
So is there, when you say type 1 bipolar, is there like a type different, like, you get type 1 diabetes, you get type 2 diabetes? Is there kind of
there are many different types of bipolar, and I'm sorry to cut you off there. I didn't mean to, but there are many types of bipolar disorder. Type 1 is the heaviest form. Normally, it's the high and the lows, not so much in the middle. Type 2 is more like hypomania, which is not full blown, where people are like, I know somebody was saying in the comments earlier, not like you're very creative, but you'll have the little bursts of that, but not for very long. Although, of course, from type 2 bipolar, where it's the highs and lows are not that deep, you do have rapid cycling, which is you could have in a day, in an hour, in a conversation, your mind might take you on a ride. Now, it's not like I would say I would cry right now and then all of a sudden be angry with you, be happy with you. Not that bad, but you will detect a change in mood quickly with rapid cycling. And even in tone of voice, you'll be able to kind of hear the tone of voice. So now everybody's different, though. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem with bipolar disorder or mental illnesses, is that even though it may be in the DSM, which is the how to look up different mental illnesses and what they are, what kind of diagnosis or how to diagnoose them, I think that people need to understand everyone is different. So I might feel a certain way and with my bipolar disorder and anxiety, then someone else with type 1 bipolar disorder might be happy, creative all the time when they're on a high on type 1 and never aggressive, never overly angry. You know, that may never happen. Now, the crash is the crash. The crash happens. So when the depression happens, it happens. Yeah.
So do you, I mean, dealing with that growing up, when you actually got to the stage you realized it was bipolar, I mean, as you say, ADHD was more the common thing. And I mean, when did they start to really recognize bipolar? Was it always there or just not recognized as much? Like, they took a while with depression. They didn't really recognize depression until they realized it eventually did. But then it's like everything else eventually is recognized as something that there is an issue going on, and there is something happening. So when did they sort of realize, well, when was bipolar really discovered and say that's bipolar? So it was called that.
Bipolar was discovered. So here's where we get into the deep waters. Here's where we really start. Bipolar was discovered because in 2013, in early 2013, I have my daughter. My daughter is now going to be 9 in a week from today. And I was living with her and my ex, my daughter's mother, was having issues, a lot of issues in the relationship. Everything was spiraling down. Didn't know how to get a grip on anything in my life. I had lost my job at the very end there in 2013. I had lost my job. Our cars got repossessed. I lost my apartment. Everything. And when my ex took my daughter with her to her mother's house to get away from the situation because our lease was up, I actually ended up trying to commit suicide. Right. So with that, then the deep depression set in, but it was only diagnosed as depression. I guess they didn't do a very good of a job at the hospital the first time, so it didn't diagnose the first time. But then I had another incident about 4 months later after I was let out. I had another incident 4 months later where then when they finally brought another doctor in to diagnose, I was diagnosed then in the mental facility with type 1 bipolar disorder. So I've been diagnosed since August of 2013.
So we'll kind of backtrack a little bit. Now you said, I mean, when did you meet the mother of your child? I mean, obviously you must have met her at some point. Obviously at some point. I'm just forgetting. I have to cycle. You're not 50 years old. You're only 30, and I have to. It's a limit. Oh, I've got a small.
I told you I'm an old man for 30. I'm an old man.
I have to admit. Right, I do listen to Pat on a regular basis through other avenues. I have to find you are very, very knowledgeable in what you know, and you are very, very knowledgeable. I have to agree with you. Have a lot of good source of information in your head, which is very interesting just listening to you. And that hence why you obviously did very well when you did radio, and you still do well in radio because you have that sort of knowledge. It's just there. You can't really buy, you know.
Yeah. It's the way I think I genetically was programmed. Is just so my father does it, but not to the extent that I do it. So he does it, and he has the ability to recall things and do things like that. But I'm going to get a little off topic, so let me get back on topic. So the meeting my ex-girlfriend, my daughter's mother, it was 2009 when I met her. So 2009, in 2008, my father left my mother. Okay. In 2008, I had already been out of high school, graduated in 2007. But in 2008, in late 2008, about 3 weeks before my birthday, my mother had gotten in a motorcycle accident and had hurt herself, had hurt her arm, had a concussion, whatever else, right? So I worked at a car dealership at the time, came home. They're all sitting on the couch. Hey, we need to talk to you. So that was how that was introduced to me. Then in 2009, that was in September of 2008. In March of 2009, I met my ex, and we liked each other right off the bat. We tried to hang out with each other. We had issues with the mother. Her mother was very, very overprotective, kind of like my mother, but in a almost turned up form. So unfortunately, I had to combat those issues that first summer, and we actually ended up at one point in time being homeless, where I had to do certain things I'm not proud of to make our ends meet and make sure we had a hotel to stay in and food in our stomachs, right? So
I think, well, what we'll do before we'll take a wee small break. If you're obviously, because we're taking a break, it's because this is going out on the podcast. We'll actually take a break. We'll come to that when you said you had to do things you weren't proud of. That's always interesting, because a lot of people, when you're at the lowest, you will have to do things to survive. So we'll come into that in a second. Well, if you're listening to this in the podcast, we'll take the break, which you'll be listening to BENITA Charles' 60-second motivational singing tips. So you'll be able to tune into that. During the show, there'll be splits. We'll play some music. We've got Carly Beth. She will be, her new song has just been released, so we'll play that. She was a classical singer. She's also in New York, actually. She was a classical singer, went to more contemporary, which is a really good singer, really nice music. So we'll play that down the line. So, but anyway, we'll be back after 60-second singing tips. We'll be back after this.
Hi, this is BENITA Charles from BENITACharles.com on Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders with your 60-second singing tip. Today's tip is about focus. In a world where there are multiple distractions, information overload, and several things vying for your attention, multitasking is encouraged. By definition, multitasking is the ability to deal with more than one task at the same time. However, there's something to concentrating on one thing and focusing on that thing until it's complete. Try it. Pick one thing you need to do. Block out a certain amount of time with no distractions. You would be amazed at what you can accomplish. Stay focused. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for the next 60-second singing tip on Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders.
And welcome back to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders with Pat Voss, my guest all the way from Chicago. Now, we've just touched base on his bipolar. We're dissecting that and his depression, and with him growing up as well, and his first relationship and the situation he's been in. Now, he did touch on just before the break that he had to do things to survive because he ended up homeless. So, Pat, tell us a bit more about that, if you're okay with talking about
Sure. Sure. Like I was saying before the break, it's my ex-girlfriend's mother and that family was very, very protective, like overprotective. We don't want you to go out and do anything, experience anything in life. We just want you to work a job and secure for the family and not care about anybody outside. So unfortunately, that's what I was combating. And when we became homeless, it was April of 2009 that we started. And luckily, and I'll say, if I can say luckily, I'll say luckily we were homeless during the summer and not the winter. But we were where I still had a car, but we didn't have a place to stay. So I was trying to constantly drive her to her work, trying to figure out how we were going to pay for, washing clothes, making sure, how were we going to do all this? So imagine sticking yourself, another human being in a car, food or things in the back seat, all loads of clothes and other items in the trunk. I mean, it was a full car. So unfortunately, we had to do that. Now, as I was saying, there were things that I did that I regret. Now, the one thing that I did that I regret was, one thing is when you realize you're hungry, when you realize you have nowhere else to go, you will do whatever it takes, whether you have to beg or steal or do whatever, to make sure that you have food in your stomach and you have a roof over your head. Unfortunately, I did resort to stealing back in the summer of 2009. I was stealing CDs from Targets and Walmarts and then reselling them because I still had a car, mind you, at this point. I still had a car. So I was stealing these CDs in bulk, and then going to the local mall, which has a place called FYE, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, for your entertainment. It's sells CDs, records, movies, whatever. Well, you can sell back CDs. If you have a CD, you used to be able to do a program where you could sell CDs to them and say, I don't want this anymore. And they would give you a couple bucks for them. So what I would do is I would take the CDs, I'd unwrap them out of their wrappers from the store that I took them from, take them to FYE, and then sell them back to them for $3 to $5 a pop. And then that would consistently pay for us to have a hotel, clean clothes, and food. So that's what I did until I was caught in the fall of 2009. I was caught trying to do that to a Meijer store, and was arrested, had to go to court, had to pay, a fine. Luckily, I wasn't like fully jailed for that. Although there was a felony amount of CDs, like the dollar amount was a felony amount, but they chose to go nicely on me and give it as a misdemeanor because it was a first time offense. And I learned from that, like, okay, I snapped out of it. Finally, my family members and other people were willing to help out a little to have a place to stay, so I could kind of get my affairs in order in that way. And that was the biggest thing. Right after that, well, the reason why we got our affairs in order is because we figured out that my ex was pregnant.
Right. So going forward, you've obviously it was a big wake up call to end up. You could end up in jail basically, which you basically didn't, which is obviously a lot better than because I mean, who knows? Yeah, the scenario. But you've now. So you woke up. You've got your family now kicking in to help you out, and so life going forward. Your girlfriend's pregnant. Where is life taking you from there? Obviously, you have to rebuild in some way or form. And what was your next stage? Going through bipolar at the same time,
right? And not knowing it. So you got everybody in the chat, everybody watching, everybody listening. You have to keep in mind at this point in time, I didn't know that I had bipolar disorder. I didn't know how to handle what I was going through mentally while dealing with everything else. So. Not that, nobody else suffers from that, which I know people do. So just listen. It was after 2009, my daughter was born in March of 2010. And it was tough because I was making sure that I was the one working. I worked 2 jobs. I made sure I put food on the table. I had things working. Now, as that happened, though, the relationship, because of the way that I was functioning, the relationship was deteriorating. So as I'm going, I only met her in 2009, my ex. By 2010, we pretty much already hated each other. But it's not necessarily all, one or the other's fault because, looking back now, there were issues that I was having that I didn't even know I was having. But then on her side, it was taking it and not being able to do anything with what was happening and not being able to solve anything. So unfortunately we were having issues. And then finally in 2013, when we moved out of my mother's house, we moved in 2012, we did that. We lived in an apartment by ourselves for a year with our daughter. And I tanked there. I was spending money left and right on frivolous things and just constant spending where we couldn't meet our rent payments. And we ended up getting evicted.
So where did you end up by getting evicted? Did you end up on a hotel? Did you go anywhere or what?
No. So the couple days before we were supposed to fully be moved out is when I was explaining this is before the show was explaining that my ex took my daughter and moved in with her mom. And I was still at the apartment when they left. And I was deep in it. I mean, feelings wise, I was deep where it almost felt like there was no way out. So I walked myself because my car had already been repossessed. So I had walked myself from my apartment, probably, a few miles down the road, walked myself a few miles down the road, went to the local store, bought myself some pills, came back to the apartment and attempted to commit suicide.
So did you obviously didn't succeed, which is
Surprise.
a good thing.
Sorry.
But
obviously didn't, but let's. So did you? Obviously, did you try, or what happened? What was it regarding suicide? When you're trying to do it, did you go through with it, or did you?
I did. No. I just didn't. I just survived.
Just survived.
Yeah, I took all the pills I was going to take. I ended up surviving.
Who found you?
My mother.
Okay.
And unfortunately, her at the time, which is now her husband, her current boyfriend at the time, was with her because I had forgotten that weekend they were supposed to come pick up. There was a couch that we had in the apartment, and I forgot they were supposed to come pick that up because I was so like all over the place. It didn't even enter my mind that they were coming. And so that's why I took the time to walk all the way to the store, walk all the way back. I don't remember them finding me. Now I know who found me, but I do not remember them finding me. I remember waking up in the hospital.
So you did mention, I know we had a brief chat off before the show started. You had a second attempt?
No, I had another depressive incident like heavy depressive incident in August, I believe, of 2013. Because the first time that I attempted, I was in a mental facility. They took me to a mental facility. I was there for a week. Then it was, you have major depression. And then I was told to go to therapy. I was signed up for therapy, and I was given medications, but it wasn't just major depression, unfortunately. So then in August of 2013, my ex's mother starts going off at the mouth on me about different issues and wish I would have just died when I did this because it would be better for my daughter and everyone around us and blah, 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 blah. So I threatened to kill her. I made a verbal threat over the phone. Now, not that I would act on it, but I was so seeing red at that time that I made a threat. Now, unfortunately, then when they called the cops knew my past history of being hospitalized before. So I was taken back to the hospital, be reevaluated for, kind of where my mental state was at there. And I'm like, and I couldn't help it because I wasn't on any right medication or anything. So I was going. I was just going, giving them, unfortunately, everything they needed to basically lock me up again in a mental facility. So I was there for another week. During that week, though, there was another doctor that came through, a neurologist that came through, and then a psychiatrist. And together, they were like, okay, here is our diagnosis. Here it's XYZ seems to be going on. This they misdiagnosed in the beginning. It looks like type 1 bipolar disorder. And that's where I got my official diagnosis, was in the hospital the second time. That's where I got it. So I have been diagnosed and have been officially suffering from type 1 bipolar disorder since August of 2013. And have been on disability from the state of Illinois since October of 2016. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to take a slight break again. We'll come back with a song with Carly Beth's new song, which has just been released. So which is a really nice song. I remember the title, actually. It helps if I remember what the title is. Which always a bonus. Her new song is Sleepless Lullaby, which is but she's an artist from New York. So we'll be back after this song when you're listening to this on the podcast, obviously, because at the moment we're doing a video cast at present. So just not to confuse the listener or whenever you're listening to this on a replay on video or audio. So we'll be back after Carly Beth.
I'm staring at the ceiling, hoping that you're feeling the same. Although I say I never missed you, we both know that's part of the game. I put down my phone 'cause there's no trace of you. I wonder if you think so too. I open up my eyes and wonder about you some more, you some more. You sing me up. Sleepless, sleepless, sleepless lullaby. I've been sleepless, you're not sleeping by my side. Toss and turn and you keep me up all night. You sing me a sleepless, sleepless, sleepless lullaby. I've been sleepless, you're not sleeping by my side. Toss and turn and you keep me up all night. Guess I want you sleeping by my side. Sleepless, sleepless, sleepless lullaby. I've been sleepless, you're not sleeping by my side. Toss and turn and you keep me up all night. Guess I want you sleeping by my side. Sleepless, sleepless, sleepless lullaby. I've been sleepless, you're not sleeping by my side. Toss and turn and you keep me up all night. Guess I want you sleeping by my side. Sleeping by my side, sleeping by my side, sleeping by my side.
And welcome back. That was Carly Beth, Sleepless Lullaby. Her new song has just been released. So, as I say, we're back with Pat Voss. We've just dissected a bit of his life, how he discovered it. He got bipolar when it was diagnosed. We're going to talk about going forward, dealing with that, dealing with how to deal with bipolar and a way to manage your life. And obviously, he's done a bit of radio, DJing, podcasting. And we'll go into that, which is all good. So, tell us, once you knew that you're type 1 bipolar, what was your next stage going forward? How to manage that?
So my next stage going forward was to figure out, okay, what's the right blend of therapy and medication? Because at the time I still wasn't seeing my daughter, so I was trying to get myself together, but I had also applied in 2013 for disability because I was like, okay, I'm working, I'm trying, everything is falling apart around me. But it does have a happier ending. I promise we'll get to it. But after 2013, I stopped actually working for a while, and then got offered in 2015. I was offered a job for 670 The Score here in Chicago for radio. So I worked for them for a little while. I did overnights. I did production. And then I moved out because I couldn't afford to be out where I was at anymore. So I had to move out and get a radio job out in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And that, unfortunately, was a radio station that had an older audience, anything from 55 and older. And I was bringing, because at the time, right before I had started working for The Score, right before that, I was actually wanting to start and talked into starting a podcast, my own show. Hey, why don't you do a sports thing? It might help take your mind off of some things. So I started. Unfortunately, I grew an audience with that show. Didn't know how to handle that, but knew that I had an 18 to 24-year-old audience that was interested in sports specifically, and tried to bring that to the northwest suburbs, suburban radio station. They told me no. I asked again 6 months later. They told me no again. I gave my 2 weeks notice and started doing my own show.
Wow.
So I have been doing this show, not your show, but my show. I've been doing for, this is going on 5 years of some iteration of that show of sports and science. And I will say, as it goes with doing podcasts and doing what you do now, it is a fantastic way to be social. Now, some people like myself, I do have to take some breaks. I cannot go I can't anymore go, 6 straight days, 3 episodes a day where I was recording. Because when I'm on a manic high, I can record many, many, many episodes, do them correctly, upload them, do all that. But then when the crash inevitably comes, then it's time to kind of step back and reevaluate yourself. So I do have that issue, but I will say positively, having a podcast is a great way to meet people. Also, if you're not on LinkedIn already, get on LinkedIn. It is a huge connection tool and networking tool. It is exactly what it's supposed to be used for, is how I used it when it came to meeting entrepreneurs, people that were on YouTube that had millions of subscribers, like these. And I was interviewing these people, and I was a nobody. So that's what I'm saying. LinkedIn is a huge tool. You look up your favorite podcaster, YouTuber, whoever, more than likely they're on LinkedIn. And if they're not, they're on Twitter. So look them up and then DM them, comment on their stuff. Make sure you try to build a basic foundation relationship with someone, and then try to move it along to an interview if that's what you do, or a show. Or if you're a producer, hey, my co-host would love to have you on, something.
You've also been, so obviously you did your own podcast, you've built your own audience. How long did you carry that on for, and what levels was it going to?
I had it where it was not only a video cast on YouTube, like a YouTube channel, but it was also on podbean.com, PODBEAN. That was my first. I give a big shout out to them, because that was my first audio podcasting site that I used, and they have treated me very well over the years. So, congrats to them for succeeding in creating their site. And then, of course, I RSS fed it into iTunes. So it was on iTunes. It was, 24,000 Twitter followers. It started well. The first show started well. The problem with that is I was always working for a radio station. I was used to working for a station that was handling all the social media, all the other stuff. So now for once it's on my back. And I didn't necessarily know how to handle that. Now, I did try to bring that LNMU, the late night mix-up. That was my original show. I tried to bring that to the suburban radio station. Didn't work. So I kept doing it on my own. And then when I left the suburban radio station is when my numbers started going up, because I was focusing all my time and efforts onto the station, onto the podcast. So it does work. I will say this, guys, don't get obsessed doing a podcast. Just be happy with what you're doing. If it's a subject that you can get into it. If there's a niche audience that is going to listen to your podcast, that do listen to other podcasts like yours, make sure you know about your audience first. Do not just jump in, blindly, because that will inevitably lead to your failure. Don't do that. That's something I made a semi-mistake with my first one. So I had to stop, because after a year, finally the crash did happen. Go ahead.
I was going to say is I did hear you. I heard Pat on earlier on this morning. You did mention that you did some choreography.
Choreography, dancing. Yeah.
Hence the reason I sort of bring that up, because you've had, when you had the crash after doing everything with the podcasting and really just having to manage things yourself. I mean, we're going through a crash. Before we go into the other topic of choreography and that other hobby,
sure.
Going through that period of crash, how long are you crashed for? How long are you totally out of it?
Months, sometimes. I mean, if anybody's learned anything from my last show or my current show, JCT Podcast, they will know that my last interview. Now I have a few interviews coming up that I've now rescheduled. But if you look, my last piece of content was like 5-6 months ago on JCT Podcast. So there's a big gap. There's a half a year gap in between content. That is inevitably where you can tell the crash has happened. Even though I might be on the upswing now where I can interview people again, you'll see that kind of gap. And that's where I say, I don't want to let my people that not necessarily even subscribe to the channel, even if it says 70 subscribers or whatever it is, the views wise, I love that I'm able to get good guests. Those guests get good views, but I don't need, I just don't want to let my subscriber base or a viewer base down, because if they're used to something and I'm pumping out content constantly for 6 months, and then I take a 6-month break, I may be able to format my show like that. Like, hey, it's in seasons. Next season's coming back in 6 months. But, I don't want to let an audience down that gets used to something is my biggest thing.
So it gives you a bit of time to recharge.
It does give me a long time to recharge. So,
but when you're having a crash moment, what do you go through? Obviously when you're just literally, you just sleep a lot, or what's going through your head?
I can't sleep normally when I'm going through it. Normally, the sleep deprivation gets really, really bad. I start having what I would consider like PTSD type flashbacks. A lot of older relationships or older events in my life just keep you up. It keeps you like it's a nightmare when you're awake. Okay. I'll say it like that. It's a nightmare while your eyes are open.
And how do you deal with that with yourself? How do you deal? I mean, you must have a coping mechanism to deal with these things.
I try. So that's where I say, and I talked to you before this show is my coping mechanism may not work for everyone, because I'm starting to realize the majority of human beings do not use this kind of mechanism. I let it pass. I try to go on with my normal day, not saying I'm trying to fill it with other things so that it just passes. No, I'm just going on with my normal day, because I have learned over the years, whether it be at home with my upbringing or at school getting picked on, you have to learn how to survive. Not that you might be happy all day, every day, but you have to learn how to survive through it. It is a scary and maybe people would say unhealthy way to go about it. But I will tell you this. I have to learn while I'm having things where I'm seeing my daughter now every other weekend. I am engaged. I bought a townhouse with my fiance. I have responsibilities. I have other things going. But even when I hit my crash, it's nice to know that I still have someone that understands, like my fiance, that understands what I'm going through minute to minute, so that it's not like, oh, he's just acting like this again. So that is very, very nice. I would say I hate to say a person is my coping mechanism, not that I can't, get through it myself, which I have. Obviously, I'm still alive, but it is nice to have someone that, not to, hey, I'm your crutch, but I do understand what you're going through. You explained it well to me, what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So now I know how to kind of react to it and be reactionary, and help you out a little bit along the way where you might be slipping a little. I love that. I do like that. So unfortunately, coping mechanism, it's not just breathing. It's not yoga. It's not any of this other stuff that I have tried that doesn't work for me, but I've seen has worked for so many other people. It just doesn't seem to be cracking through here. And, but I'm still alive and I'm still creative.
I'm guessing Lycra's not quite a good look for you. No, for your yoga. I'm guessing Lycra's not quite a good look for you.
No, I found out that downward dog is not a great pose.
Okay. That's moving on swiftly on that one.
Curtis, you know what I'm saying. I was like,
So Curtis is a guy who's we're obviously on a video chat, and there's people who. But we'll take a small break. I'm going to shout out to my supporters, contributors to Ramsay Unleashed Going Beyond Borders, and I'm grateful for the people who do support what I do, and I like to give that back to them in the day. Give thanks to Eileen Smith from eileensmith.com. That's ILEANE, and she got a YouTube channel. She does a lot of testing of broadcasting platforms, podcasts, live streaming. If you want to learn stuff, you'll learn a lot through Eileen. She's constantly testing stuff. Also want to thanks to John Drummond from who's in Edinburgh, ideasgolive.com. He's a web designer. He does websites. Great guy. Did my website for my business. I want to shout out to obviously myself. If you want cleaning services, edinburghdusters.co.uk. If you're in the vicinity of Edinburgh, or maybe you're looking for some advice on cleaning, happy to help. Give us a shout, edinburghdusters.co.uk. They've got Curtis Brooks Media Productions, who's a big supporter of us, and we thank you for his help and support going forward. So if you're looking for some videos or even websites or some other stuff, advice, he's happy to help. Curtis Brooks Media Productions. He is in Texas, but he's global. Want to shout out to Brent Mann, brentmannmusic.com, country singer, but he's a great supporter and encouragement to us, what we do, and thank you for him. And he recommended one of my recent podcast guests, which I will be up shortly. But yeah, and also Shannon Griffin, who's a breast cancer survivor, does t-shirts, a t-shirt brand called For Humanities. Want to thank you for all these people who do support us. And there's also, as I say, BENITA Charles that supports us with our singing tips, and is grateful to play her music she provided with us to entertain you as well. And our main sponsor is kingdombeads.com by Aoife Aletham. So if you're looking to design your own beads or have your own buy what's there on the website, you can go to kingdombeads.com and you can make a purchase and help support her and the show as well, what we're doing. So that's a shout out to my supporters and sponsors. I was going to play another Carly Beth songs. I'll play that, so we'll be back after this. I'm just going to pick a random one, and I'll go from there. But she's a really good artist and really good songs. I like her music. As I say, I like finding artists. If you're an artist out there and you're listening to this and you've got music and you want to get it onto a podcast or more to a global scene, I like to be able to take the local to the global and the global to the local scene for people to hear what they do. So in the day, you're not just stuck to your sort of same old routine of you want to get it out to people in Scotland or the UK. I would love to open the doors open, give me a shout. I'll listen to it. If I like it, I'll play it. If I don't like it, I might play it anyway. But anyway, that's a big thanks to. We'll be back after Carly Best on our tunes, and we'll be back in a sec.
Sitting in class, see the parking lot. Used to be sun, but now there's raindrops. You're thinking how you can make it stop. Thoughts and prayers are sent along, but they don't fix what is really wrong. They think we're weak, but we stand strong. I was in the room, but I was out of my head. Could have been prevented, but nothing was said. We need leaders where no one's led. Maybe when our tears start to dry, maybe when our hearts can unify, maybe when we see eye to eye, it's up to us and we decide that it is time. It is time. And it is time. Never again. 'Cause it is time. Sitting in class thinking about the test. But how can I think when there's such unrest? Every time I think, my face gets wet. Things are said, but nothing's ever done. We need some changes for the long run. Let the world be safe for everyone. I was in the room, but I was out of my head. Could have been prevented, but nothing was said. Let's be leaders where no one's led. Maybe when our tears start to dry, maybe when our hearts can unify, maybe when we see eye to eye, it's up to us and we decide that it is time. It is time. And it is time. Never again. Never again. 'Cause it is time. Music spreads through the speakers and they share this song with all their friends. We make the change and this all ends. Joey's in class with his textbook. He's not worried, he feels safe. Just look, now the sun is shining in the parking lot, and there's not a single raindrop. Now that our tears finally dried, now that our hearts have unified, now that we see eye to eye, it's up to us and we decide that it is time. It is time. this time.
And welcome back to Ramsay Unleashed Going Beyond Borders. We're using the platform Get Vocal. You also you're going to be on obviously a video platform. If you've never heard of it, you can go to getvocal.com, which is GETVOKL.com. And we're in with my guest is Pat Voss, all the way from Chicago. If you are a TV fan, you will probably know you got Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire all in one place. It did have Chicago Justice. If you're a bit of a TV geek like myself, as you can probably never guess. But that only lasted one season. But hey ho! But I like Pat is laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. Pat, thank you as I say for being on here. Thank you for what you've been sharing with your experience, which has been great. We're going to talk about. I lost my train of thought. We were going to talk about it when I took the break. Regarding your
talking about choreography.
Yes, we're going to talk about choreography because you've just you realised we've talked about how you dealt with your crash. That's what how you just get on with it and you just let it pass. It's good. It's good news that you're now seeing your daughter every other week, which is fantastic news.
Thank you.
You've obviously recently got engaged. Was it recently?
I've been engaged. Well, so because I'm on disability from the state of Illinois, I was engaged in November of 2016. I'm still with my fiance, but we're trying to figure out where I can move forward to possibly find something that I can to supplement in what I'm missing for my disability and what I can earn on top of disability pay, because what eventually would happen is if we were to get married, it would be a joint income, which would make sure that I lose all of my disability income. So I would need to make sure I supplement. But once I do, and we figure that out this year, more than likely 2020 or spring of 2021, we will be married.
What do you, with knowing what you go through in life on a daily basis, I mean, what generally gets you depressed? I mean, even though you got the bipolar, but what gets you maybe down on a day when you're feeling you just can't be bothered doing anything, and it's like, for me, I've been through depression myself, but obviously not to the extent of bipolar stage. I know what it's like to get down, and I know what it's like to suffer from it. You sit there and you'll literally just have days when you're just crying, and that because you're just so low, your wit's end. So, when you get days like that, I mean, dealing with that, you must still, and it's difficult. Obviously, you're not just going through the whole bipolar, but just getting days when you get down, you just want to. How do you cope with that? How do you?
Well, it's more.
But what I mean mentally, when you get times you just really can't be bothered, and you just want to this is really quite hard. How am I dealing with this? How am I going to get without just letting it go through? But I don't know. I've probably lost my train of thought on what I'm trying to say. I lost my question.
I've got you though. I've got you covered. Okay. So unfortunately, it's not where I don't want to go out and do anything. It feels, I can feel the separation that I know it's internal. It's mental. It's not physically making me where I won't go out and do anything. Like I may go out. Well, eventually, yes. If it gets bad enough, I will just want to stay in bed all day.
Okay.
But most of the time, it's bad where it keeps me up at night. And It starts by whatever is wrong with whatever I perceive as wrong with the day or wrong with whatever I'm doing at the current moment. I don't know why it decides to come out, at night, but it's because I have a time to think. I have time to think. I'm not constantly moving. I'm not on Get Vocal at that time. Sometimes I'm not on Get Vocal or on a platform where I'm being social, even if I'm destroying people's belief systems. I'm not being social. I'm not being social. So it's time to think. And unfortunately, thinking for someone who is going through a lot of depression is not the best thing to be doing. You want to stay kind of busy to let it pass, to let it kind of work its way out. The interesting thing, and I will give this piece of advice to people that do suffer from it: do not overwork yourself. Do not overexert yourself too. There has to be a balance, unfortunately. I know people don't want to have a balance. They want to have all good and no bad. But the problem is when you're trying to combat the depression by staying busy, that can always turn into, it could trigger a manic state because you're overexerting yourself. So there is time to learn. Again, work with your therapist. If you have a therapist, I suggest it. Therapy, like psychiatrists, to try to level out. Sometimes medications work, sometimes they don't. I'm not going to lie to you guys on here. I'm not going to tell you, like everyone else should tell you, that medications are always going to work and it always evens you out. No, it's not true. But I'm not saying that it can't work. And that's the thing I'm realizing. There are some people that suffer from mental illness that it just doesn't gel with them in the same way that it will with other people. So, and I've met a few of them that are not on medication, but have some other coping mechanism, like you were saying, or have something else to not necessarily make the lows so low. So, for those of you in the Get Vocal room, Big Bad Brad just said, makes it worse with meds. Sometimes that is true. Sometimes it does get you, if it's not the right combination and you haven't been on it long enough to really get your body used to it, it could, spiral a depression, but it's not always going to. So there are people that will be okay by doing the normal steps of ways of doing things. And there's other ones that kind of have to be out of the box a little bit. So for me, it's a way of, I have to just stay and watch the YouTube videos and I'm watching physics lectures. I'm watching or talking to you guys on Get Vocal. I'm always doing something during the night, because if I'm not, and I'm just sitting in bed, that's when I would start spiraling, and I don't want to do that either. So that is what I do.
So what we're going to do, what's a couple of more questions. One, what going forward, you obviously plan to get married in 2021. Do you have a sort of set many goals that do you think going down the line in your life that you will ever have some sort of better control of your bipolar going down the line, that you'll be able to have at least try and live a more of a, I would say, a semi-normal life to an extent, but if you pardon the, well, if you know what I mean, the normal, if you know what I mean. So,
no, I understand what you mean, and unfortunately, I don't think normal. Obviously, I know what you meant, but for those of, for those of you out there that are suffering from mental illness, it may never be what you consider normal, but definitely there are happy mediums to be met with a lot of these. So don't just go straight to, I know life seems hard, your mental state may seem really heavy, but don't go to, trying to take your own life. Don't ever, if you can help it, if you have to, call an emergency line. If you have to, call a suicide hotline. If you have to, have a therapist on dial or a psychiatrist on dial. Get them to get a plan together to where you have emergency contacts in that way. Because if you don't, that's why you see these even young people that are getting bullied or have a mental illness or whatever it is, that do end up committing suicide, because they just don't, in their mind, they don't see a way out. They don't see a happy lining to it. And not everyone will have a happy lining, but it's much more possible if you're already thinking that way, if you're trying to reach it. If, like you said, a goal, I know I have other goals I'll get into in a second, but if you have a goal, make sure that you have and I won't say this on your podcast, but make sure you have an F it button. Make sure you have an internal F it button. And by F it button, I mean, you have to learn, and you have to, and I hate to say harden yourself, but you have to harden yourself mentally enough to learn that you're still suffering from it. You're trying to build coping mechanisms to it and having a contact list, but you also need to not care what other people think of what you're going through. You need to be able to, the people that are going to say, do you wrong, leave them by the wayside, because those guys eventually, even if they keep doing it day by day, guess what? They don't matter to you. In 10 years, are they going to matter to you? No. Is somebody in school bullying you going to matter in 20 years? No. Hell, even my ex-girlfriend, who I have not been with now for 6 years, she doesn't matter to me. And it's because I was able to cut that mental thread. And that's the thing is it doesn't work for everyone, but that is the one thing you should be striving for constantly. Because if you don't have it, it's very difficult to make it through everyday life if you don't have some kind of internal F it button. Okay. It's not something, especially if you're suffering from mental illness in a severe way where it could be life threatening. You have to have that little backup plan that I call the F it button.
No, that's good advice. I completely agree. You've got to be able to, if you take things too seriously in life when you're going through, it can be it can affect you more rather than just saying, listen, I'm going to keep moving forward and think of me. And the main thing is it's about you. It's not about anybody else. You've got to just survive. And if you don't survive, you're going to crumble, Well, let's say we're going to go into a slight lighter note. How did you get into choreography?
Good. Here it comes. Sorry.
You drag things out, don't I? To get.
Hey, why'd you want to kill yourself? Hey, how'd you start dancing? No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just kidding. No, but seriously though, I got into choreography. I started with musical theater back in high school. Started doing choreography excuse me. Let me back up a little bit farther. I started watching different choreography from like West Side Story, Chicago, Rent. I was watching these things and like, okay, I like how they're doing this. Well, not really Rent, but more so Chicago and West Side Story. And I'm like, okay, I see how they do that. And I love the way they move. They move fluidly. They're professionals. I can see they're professionals. How did they get to that point? Where are these, because luckily for me, I grew up in an age where YouTube is king. So, not real. Well, I mean, after high school, but whatever. YouTube was king enough at the point that I wanted to do this. So I was able to look up videos of people doing choreography, like breaking it down bit by bit and learning the cadences. And then for the longest time, I found out, since I was a little kid, I was really one of the only people in my family that had true rhythm, like true rhythm. I couldn't lose the beat. It wasn't, even if I tried, I can't be stereotypically white. And I know people are going to laugh at that, but I can't be stereotypically white. And I have rhythm. I can't lose it. It's just not in me. So, when I got into high school, thanks, Curtis. When I got into high school, I, started dancing through musical theater and then realized I'm better at these routines because I've looked them up. I'm better at these routines than the people that are trying to teach these people the routines. So then I offered to my teacher, hey, why don't I teach these guys? Why don't I take these guys? And then on the weekends, I can teach the chorus, the background dancers as well. And I did. And we had, 3 different musicals in a row. We had, we did Grease. We did Guys and Dolls. We did, unfortunately, my senior year of high school, we did High School Musical because the theater teacher stepped down. So the music teacher was the one that took over. And unfortunately, High School Musical was popular at that time. Oh, and by the way, on top of that, I tried to boycott. I tried to boycott the High School Musical play in my senior year of high school. I threatened, and I got a group of us together to threaten to walk out if we didn't get certain demands met. So, and not do the play as our senior year play.
So what were the demands?
Well, the demands were we know where, because he was trying to put his own music students in certain spots in like main characters when we knew that other people we had could act better than these people could just sing. They could act better. So we were trying to get these other people like, listen, don't favor just because these other people are kissing your butt. Don't favor them. Favor the people that have been working their tails off for 4 straight years. And some of us even from middle school that were together back even then, give us that. And my only demand for me was, I hate this musical. I don't want to just be a backup dancer because that craps on my entire hard work for the last 4 years. I said, if you make me assistant choreographer to teach these guys the choreography for these, I will stay on. And all our demands were met. We went on with the musical and we were good. Now, yeah. And after high school, I actually helped choreograph West Side Story at the local community college. But that's where that started. Unfortunately, and go ahead.
No, I was good to carry on. It's obviously a bit more. I thought you were kind of coming to the end of that, what you were saying, but there's more to talk about. Carry on.
Well, I forgot that there is one other thing I was doing at the same time.
What were we doing?
As I was doing musical theater and choreography there, I was also doing hip hop choreography for years.
Ooh, interesting.
I wanted to turn my rhythm into not just, hey, we're a jet. Hey, we're this. Hey, we're, super freaking, oh, I almost cursed there. We're super freaking like hyper. And sorry. And I was like, I like that dirty, low down. I know not a lot of people won't understand what I'm saying. Now, people in the chat will, but I won't. I like that dirty, low down. Like, you have to have a rock with it. You have to have a rock. You have to have a certain type of rhythm. And I had that type of rhythm kind of mentally. I could feel it, and I wanted to make that come out. So then I learned, and then I learned that I could pick up choreography for hip hop dancing quick, and not breakdancing, spinning on my head, but I'm talking, ticking, tutting, waving, anything to come around. I could pick it up quick, and that was the best part is learning quickly, and that's something I think not everybody has. Some people have to learn it. Some people have it. I understand, and I've met some from either category. But then after I got out of high school and I was choreographing West Side Story, I got picked up by a studio in the Northwest suburbs to be an assistant hip-hop choreographer, and was in that position up until 2013 or up until 2012, late 2012, right before actually the incidents of the losing the apartment came up. I was still doing choreography at that time. So I was doing multiple things. So I don't lose it, and I still perform. Like, if we go out to my fiance's show, she performs a certain song, or there's a certain song playing. There might be people out there that want to do a not a dance contest, but they want to have like a dance off. They want to see who's better. And I'm like, okay, let me just show you real quick. But
so now you've done that, and you've obviously you've seen it, you've still got it. Do you plan to resurrect that going forward?
I do. I plan to resurrect two things. I plan to not only go back and do choreography for a studio, but I also plan on, or at least helping other people learn choreography. Because I have pieces. I think 50 pieces of choreography that I want to teach other people, that I think would look nice to a certain song. And there's other people that I know that can do these certain things better than I can do. So I know how it'll look when they do it. So I want to resurrect that in that way. In the other way, as far as broadcasting radio, I would love to work for a local station. There's a station actually 20 minutes from here, from where I live in the suburbs of Chicago, that is not the same old person station that I was working for before, but it's a sports and news. So I have done a lot of commercial spots. I also offer that right now on the side. I offer, and not to try to plug myself, but I offer like voiceover commercial spots. I do my show. I'm offering to have anybody on that's an interesting, conversationalist. I want to have you on if you can keep up with where we go in the conversation. Like for you get it going, you make it fun. You keep, you have to take breaks, and I like it. You have it running like it's running a real show, and that's what I like. That's what I want to get back to, is really running a real show. And I feel that in the next 2 years, probably around the same time that I'm saying about getting married, probably in that same stretch, I want to work for a station again and work for their full time, and see if I can't keep it under control so I can stay there this time.
That's good. Well, as I say, myself and my sort of the community I have, we're always happy if you connect with people, or happy to help in any way. That's the main thing,
right?
That's what I like. That's what I like doing these interviews, and it's inspiration, hearing people's stories, but offering that help back to say, if we can connect you with people in any way to try and help you with the choreography, or they're getting into radio. Listen, you know what you want, what you want to do, and we can basically try and connect you and get you moving forward again, obviously at a manageable pace for yourself.
That's correct. I mean, that's exactly what I want to do. It that would be the perfect scenario. Let's say that would be the 100% perfect scenario. Coming back is doing broadcasting, and also as a side gig doing some part-time choreography and assisting with a studio. That would be great, because those are the two things that have, I hate to say, other than my fiance being with me, those are the couple things that have kept me alive, is doing broadcasting and dancing.
So, what we'll do is, where can people connect with you if they want to get in touch with you with, regarding choreography, radio stuff, voiceovers, anything else? Where can they connect with you?
So you can connect with me. I'm re-upping my Fiverr. I will post that again. But for right now, you can to offer voiceover work. But really what you can do is reach me on my email at jctofficialpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach me at Crit Thinker, CRIT Thinker 88 on Twitter. And also, if you want to reach me, you will see my nice smiling face in the booth at the booth at Wrigley with my headset on. You can reach me at Patrick Voss on Facebook as well. So there's a couple ways you can reach me now, and then we'll work from there to see if you want to be a guest on my show, if you want to have voiceover work done for your business, your podcast, if you need any kind of intro outro work, I am your guy. Well,
we will have all these on the show notes. We'll have all where you can connect with Pat on Pod. I use Podbean. We will have them all in the show notes, so you'll be able to link up with Pat at the end of the show when you're listening to the podcast as well. So, as I say, I want to say thanks to Pat for being on the show. Pat, would you want to close out in anything you want to say to people just a bit after, for those who have listened to this?
Yes, I do want to say, and thank you for giving me the time to do so. I will say, for anyone out there suffering with mental illness, it's not too late. It is not too late to stay alive, to stay, I would say relatively happy, to make yourself realize that there are other things out there and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, whether you want to see it or not. I will say, if you don't support your local NAMI and you have no idea about your local NAMI office, which is National Alliance for Mental Illness, if you do not support your local NAMI, you can go to NAMI.org, and there are different places, depends on where you're at. There's ones in all major cities. You can find your local office. You can participate in runs, in events with your local NAMI office. And that is actually underneath. And I know you can't see this on the podcast. There's a shirt I'm wearing underneath, and that is a green brain with a NAMI Chicago. I am actually a member of NAMI Chicago. So NAMIChicago.org. But that is it. Definitely contact and take your mental health and physical health. Take it very seriously, guys, because it could. You don't realize when you're maybe one click away from doing something that you can never reverse, or seeing the light at the end of the tunnel in some way, shape, or form, to where you are at, maybe where I'm at, or where someone else is at, where you are still thriving to try to do and striving to try to do and complete what makes you happy.
Well, thank you. Well, as I say, I want to thank Pat from all the way from Chicago, being on the Ramsay Unleashed podcast show. Also on the video chat, we're using getvocal.com. As I say, if you never explain what Get Vocal is, you just go to getvokl.com, and it's a video platform where people chat all across the world and network, and some general conversations as well. Let's just say it keeps you in a different frame of mind sometimes. We can be a bit crazy, but it's fun. But Pat, do you want to say anything at all? Anybody, you were going to say something there?
Yeah, one thing before you sign off of here. For anybody that's doubting anything here, it says, you are now listening to Ramsay Unleashed, going beyond borders. Here, inspirational stories every single episode. Welcome to Ramsay Unleashed on Get Vocal.
There we go. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. There we go. I had a free voiceover from the man himself. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been listening, who's listening on Get Vocal, and who'll be listening on the replay on the podcast. As I say, big thanks to all our supporters again. Curtis is one of them who's been watching this, which is great. Curtis Brooks Media Productions. And many other people, Eileen Smith and John Drummond, Ideas Go Live. So as I say, it's great to have all these supporters, and kingdombeads.com. So as I say, we are supported by them, sponsored by them, I should say. So I want to say thank you. So until next episode, until we come back, as I say, have a great weekend, have a great week, wherever you are in the world, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.